Hi, welcome back to my project table. Today we're going to be making the friendship star block. The first thing you're going to need is two 5-inch blocks of your main fabric, two 5-inch blocks of your background fabric, and 5 4.5-inch squares of your background fabric. The first thing that we are going to do is create half square triangles. We're using the 2 at a time method. So I am drawing a diagonal on both of my 5-inch background blocks. For our half square triangles, we put our two 5-inch squares right sides together, and then we sew 1/4 inch on either side of the diagonal line, and we just repeat that one more time for our second set of 5-inch blocks. Here you see me cutting those two triangles apart. I'm just cutting straight along that line that I drew down the diagonal, and I will end up with 4 half square triangles. We need to trim these half square triangles so that they are 4.5 inches square. You can just use a regular ruler, open up your half square triangles and press them to your dark side. And then you can just use your ruler markings to find the 4.5-inch marks. Make sure that you are putting that 45 diagonal on your seam line so that you have a nice even square. Or in my case, I like to use the Clearly Perfect slotted trimmer. This way I only have to make 2 cuts. So you find your 4.5-inch line on the ruler, you line that up with your seam, and then you just trim on either side of your ruler. The slots are so that you can go ahead and trim off your dog ears before you press them open. So you just trim these up and then press them all to the dark side. The layout of this block is basically a 9 patch. You start with your backgrounds in the 4 corners, and then you put your star points in the middle, following the diagram. So they're going to all point around the star. The center of this block in the pattern uses a background color block. You could also use your fabric from your star points and just have a solid color star. Or you could use a contrasting fabric in the center to give it just a different look. After you have all of your units arranged, then you are going to sew together by row. I like to chain piece, so I'm going to sew down the first 2 rows, and then I'm going to add that last row onto each of those rows. Once I have the first 2 rows sewed together, I just go ahead and leave them connected, and then I add on the final block for each row. Now I just finger press my rows towards the background blocks so that I have a nice smooth seam. I'll press inside for the middle and outside for the top and the bottom. And then once I sew those rows together, I will have nesting seams so that everything matches up. Once you have your rows sewed together, then you just give it a good press. And here is our final block. I hope you enjoyed sewing with me today. If you did, subscribe and come back. This block is part of a larger sew-along collaboration with Teresa Louise, I Quilt Too. We'll be sewing over on her channel live the second Sunday of every month until this quilt is done. And I will also post the block on the Monday after in case you can't be with us live. The details for the pattern will be in the description box. Until I see you next time, stay well.